I did it again. All right, so let me start this again, okay? I'm sorry about that. Good morning. I'm sorry I just started a little bit late from the schedule and went over on my Facebook chat, so that's why I'm a couple of minutes late here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm meteorologist Joe Cioffi. If you're new, glad you're here. We do these live streams at least once a day, and today we're going to focus on the very busy tropics, and we're going to focus on is the audio still missing? I did turn it on. Okay, somebody let me know, please. Is the audio still missing? Okay, there we go. It is there. All right. Bottom line is, if you're new, hit the subscribe button. I'm usually not this sloppy. So we're going to talk about the tropics. We're going to talk about the solar eclipse. I have a shot of the NAM model cloud cover forecast for next Monday afternoon at 2 o'clock. So you know what? Let me switch right over that, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a bit afterward. So hang on one second. We'll go to the weather report. All right, so let's get started by first looking at Tropical Storm Harvey. And what we're looking at here is the Air Force Reconnaissance Aircraft Report from this morning. And this is really cool to have access to. If you go to tropicaltidbits.com and click on on the menu at the top where you see weather models, you'll see aircraft recon. If you go to that, you can actually see the reconnaissance aircraft when they're in there, and this thing updates like every 5 minutes, and it's great because you see the aircraft reports faster here than you do on the NOAA site, and you see it graphically, which is even better. And here's your latitude and longitude, so you know it's from 15, 14, 13, 12 north, and you have 63, 62, 61, 60 west, and it shows you the path of the flight. Now, I'm guessing that this is the inbound because it looks like he has the plane going out in the other direction here, and that's the outbound. So it looks like this is the inbound flyover, and the green area of the winds, the dark green, are all gales, 34 knots or higher, and then you get into the light greens and even some yellows, which they found on the outbound flight up to 45 to 50 knots. Again, these are flight level winds, so you want to subtract that by 5 or 10 miles an hour, 5 or 10 knots when you get down to the surface. And you can see the lighter winds here. I'm trying to see from the wind field where there's a circulation, because there's a southeast wind here, there's a northwest wind here, so I wonder if there's one center in this area, and it doesn't appear all that well organized. It certainly isn't much more than a minimal tropical storm at this point, but this is really very, very cool to have. And we're going to come back to this, to a few other things that we're seeing this morning. But here's in just a second we'll look at the weather models. But here is Harvey now as it is crossing the northern windward islands. So here's Trinidad Tobago, by the way, right down here, and it's gone well north. This is Aruba, Curacao, and so on. And it's going to pass well north of those islands. It's a tight little tropical storm. It's not very big. It's only maybe about 4 degrees across. But it's holding its own as it's moving into the eastern Caribbean. There's a little bit of easterly shear going on, so that's probably holding back development. And it is going to continue to the west at least for a while. Now, I want to go to this wider satellite view because we can see that the tropics seem to be spinning. So here's Harvey. Here's the second wave behind it. And here's the one that moved off the African coast, and you can see there's some kind of circulation here as it moves on toward the west. So you've got 3 systems here at play. You also have this upper air storm that is yesterday was in the eastern Bahamas and has moved westward. And I think this is going to be a key to what happens with Harvey down the road. Here it is on the water vapor imagery, and there's that cold upper air storm. Harvey actually is in a, let's call it a not unfavorable environment in the Eastern Caribbean at the moment, because of the fact that this upper low is displaced to the west. It's getting some easterly shear, but there's as long as this upper low continues to track westward, that is going to improve conditions across the Central and Western Caribbean for strengthening. So especially if it were to get tucked in just like right in here, where there would be a real strong outflow that would set up. So we're going to have to watch this closely. This is the one big dominant feature in the high layers of the atmosphere that's in play right now. We also have a north-south stretched upper low sitting out in the Atlantic that the southern edge seems to be impacting the second wave. And you can see the clouds here, the moisture field here being blown away to the northeast. So there's probably some, there is some shear going on with this particular system, but it's almost at the same longitude. So there's going to be a point soon where it'll be passing that. And as it goes to the northwest, and that might be perhaps later in the weekend. You'll notice too, there's some dry air. Let me just get a better color. There is some dry air here on the western side. We have a little bit of dry air here to the north and west of the other wave, but the dry air seems to be at a minimum at the moment. So at least from the standpoint of that being an impediment, it's probably not as big a deal as it has been over the last number of weeks. But this is a really busy looking visible satellite view. So it's going to be interesting to see whether these next two systems develop. The Hurricane Center is indicating a 70% chance of this system developing in the next 2 days and in the next 5 days, and it has a 40% chance of the wave behind it developing. And of course, weather models have been difficult to handle all this. So we're going to go to that. By the way, here is the menu I'm talking about. So you would go, here's current storms, which we're going to go to now. And then you have aircraft recon. Levi Cowan, you are amazing with your site. And the products that you provide. Tropicaltidbits.com, a must use. All right, so let's look at the global model forecast for Harvey. And the track is generally on a course, it looks like north of west, and then maybe a little more northwest as you get toward the northwest Caribbean and into the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. There seems to have been a little bit of a shift to the north in the hurricane track models during the overnight period. This is actually the new one that just came out, the 12Z run. I want to go back and just look at the 6Z. So here's the 6Z run, and here's the we'll go to the 12Z now, and it looks like some of these models have shifted a little further to the north. And the European actually was interesting, and we're going to look at that as well. Let's also look at the next wave, which is 92L. And here are the forecast model tracks for 92L, which is generally west-northwest toward the Bahamas in 72 to 96 hours, actually in 96 hours and beyond. Some of these models have it, the ones that have it further south have it also further west faster. So that would probably imply to me that it probably keeps the system a bit weaker. See that they do another, they set up another one yet for the one further west. I do not see one here. So, okay, so we're good with that. Intensity guidance. Let's look at the middle wave intensity guidance, and actually it seems like more of them keep this under tropical storm strength than bring it above tropical storm strength. But intensity guidance is so difficult. I mean, what do you believe? The ones that keep it at 25 knots or less, or the one that makes it a Category 1 hurricane in 5 or 6 days? I don't know. I would tend to think that, when you deal with these tropical systems, it's probably best to just stay ultra short-term focused and not get too wrapped up in the long-term projections, especially on the intensity side. And here's Tropical Storm Harvey. Now, it looks like almost all of them have it keep it as a tropical storm, and there are a few of them that by 84 hours take it up to hurricane strength, and those probably are the ones that those are the ones that are when they get to we get it to the Western Caribbean, which is where Franklin did its strengthening, and it seems to, at least for now, be following the path of Hurricane Franklin from a week or so ago. Okay, so let's look at, I want to actually, you know what, we're going to go to the Canadian first, because the Canadian was really, I got a message this morning from one of my forecaster friends who I speak to almost on a daily basis, and works for the Weather Service. And he said, whatever you do, don't look at the Canadian. So, of course, the first thing I did was I looked at the Canadian. So let's watch the Canadian basically spin every low out of control. Here we are at 84 hours with 3 tropical storms possibly on the map. And the Harvey is getting ready to move into the Yucatan Peninsula. We have the second one in the eastern Bahamas. We have the third one northeast of the Leeward Islands. And the one in the Bahamas actually stalls, and it looks like the pressure drops enough on that one to make it a minimal hurricane. Harvey is over the Yucatan Peninsula. The other one is southeast of Bermuda and heads right over Bermuda as a minimal hurricane. You guys, this is just really insane. This is really, when you look at this is probably one of the most insane Canadian plots I've seen. You also have a big high building up and over Lake Superior, which is probably going to set up some kind of northeast gradient along the coast. I mean, look at this now. This is just ridiculous. It has these 3 storms just lined up the way it does. Oh my! I mean, and of course, let's add a 4th system to bring it off the Cabo Verde Islands, and naturally, we have to bring at least one of them up the northeastern New England and wipe that area out. I mean, come on, this is just, it's so ridiculous. But that's the Canadian. So let's look at the more reasonable European. Actually, the European, oddly enough, I mean, you can see the kinks that represent the Atlantic systems. Harvey, for a moment here, disappears. It's still here when you look at the isobars, and then it suddenly reappears in the northwestern Caribbean, and the European wants to take that up northwestward and actually makes it into a Category 3 hurricane off the Texas coast by day 10, if you want to believe it. And I'm trying to find some continuity with the Atlantic systems, and it looks like this middle, the Harvey being the first system, and then you have wave 2, and then here's wave 3. So it looks like the one that's furthest to the east is one that the European at least has some identity with as it moves that one east of Bermuda. And then you have, of course, in the east, you've got this big high that builds in. So let's see what has changed in the upper air with regards to the European. And, remember, we've been talking about the fact that one of the most important thing that we have to really look for is these, weaknesses that are going to be showing up in the upper flow. And for now, as we look at the Europeans' view, you've got this narrow ridge. I'm not sure exactly what this is south of the Azores. It's probably just some kind of upper low. But overall, you have this narrow east-west ridge. So everything is, trying to go westward or at worst west-northwestward. Harvey into the Caribbean. The other one to the east of that is going to try to go more west-northwest. We still don't know what the third one is going to do over time. But when we look at the upper trough, okay, so we've got this trough that's swinging through here for this weekend. I'm sorry, yeah, for this weekend. We're going to have some rather warm but reasonable conditions. We're going to look at the eclipse weather, by the way, at the end. So we have this upper ridge that builds in the east here. This is for Monday evening. Basic ridging across the Atlantic. You do have little weaknesses, though. Looks like there's a bit of a weakness, right along 60, right in here. A little bit of a weakness there. But anything that's down in the Caribbean, perhaps I'm being a little bit too generous with that northwest view, but we'll watch to see what happens with the European trending the way it is. So let's move forward here. This is on Tuesday. Now here's this deep trough that's going to be swinging into the east. The amplitude of this trough is for this time of year is pretty impressive. The jet going fairly far to the south. So to me, one of the things we're going to have to watch for, the ridge is strongest out to the east. There is some weakness in here, okay? So there may be a bit of a door opening up. If the amplitude of this trough is as deep as the model suggests, it could be a mechanism to draw Harvey a little bit further to the north. But you know, it's going to be a watch and wait and watch and see situation. The troughs in the east continue to kind of move along, and this is again by day 10. So again, the important thing is going to be going forward. The amplitude of this trough in the east. Let me just take this off a second and go back. So the big question: the amplitude of this trough in the east. Is it going to create enough of a weakness to turn Harvey eventually toward the northwest? And are there other wide weaknesses for these other waves where they're going to respond by turning north and northeast around that ridge? That is going to be, that's a critical question here going forward. And now we have it at day 10, of course, where you've got this this west-east jet across the northern part of the United States. There is a bit of a ridge here in the southeast by day 10. So let's switch to the GFS to see what we can do with this. And we'll go with that. And, the GFS is a little bit different. Well, in that the GFS also really doesn't, it perhaps showed a little bit more. The Hurricane Center described the global models as being a little bit more enthusiastic on the overnight runs than they have been recently. But look at the amplitude of this trough. This is really strong, and it's going to be a nice, robust, cool air mass that's going to come down here in our area. So that's going to be, again, critical with regards to Harvey when it gets up into the Western Caribbean. If Harvey winds up responding to that to some degree. That trough lifts out on the GFS, so you get into this, get into a ridge in the east. But here comes the next one right behind it as we go into the beginning of the month of September. This one doesn't look to have as much amplitude as the one for later next week. And by the way, I want you to notice that with respect to troughs in the east and systems coming up the east coast, I just want to remind everybody, when you have here's the jet stream. If you had something like this, okay, and I've pointed this out many times, this is when, this is one of the ways that you wind up getting a system, if it were to come out of the tropics, to respond by turning and moving northward up the east coast. Notice that the actual real jet stream behind it is nothing like this. The trough is axised that way, northeast, southwest, and the jet, it basically is a broad west-southwest, west to west-southwest flow with the westerlies from North Carolina northward. So this would not be something that would be a concern to the East Coast if the troughs are going to be this way, where they're stretched out with progression, and you get the jet stream to be pretty far to the south, but it's a west-southwest flow, and anything that gets caught in that gets pulled up and out. So, I think we're going to have some very interesting times and very interesting weather to look forward to over the next week or two. In the meantime, just want to touch on the eclipse real fast as we are getting closer and closer, 3 days away. It's Monday, August 21st. And I just want to show you, and this is courtesy of ElDoradoCountyWeather.com. This is the actual NAM model forecast total cloud cover. Now, the NAM tends to focus more on high clouds than anything else. So you got to be a little careful with this. But the black area is where you would expect mainly clear skies. And there, of course, the shades are, there's shades of black and gray. So there's probably some clouds in the mix here. But it's about as good as it gets in the northeast. There are clouds for the southeast on the NAM at 2 o'clock. There's a bit of a break over Tennessee, so Nashville, I think, may be a better choice than Charleston if this model's correct. Even St. Louis seems to be on the edge of some cloud cover to the north and northeast. Kansas City also perhaps on the edge. You've got clear skies over much of the northwest and up and down through California. You've got some cloud cover with the diurnal showers and monsoonal stuff going on in the southwest. So, as far as the northeast is concerned, certainly in my area, we're seeing model forecasts of generally, which I thought was pretty high, 70 to 80% cloud-free conditions. I mean, that's about as good as it can get in the summertime. If we had that big high coming down now instead of later next week, we probably would have a day or two where you'd be hard to find a cloud in the sky, but that didn't quite time out. But still, as far as what you could have this time of year, I think we're going to, at least for this area in the northeast, we may be in pretty decent shape, even though we're only going to see a partial eclipse. All right, so stick around, folks. Going to do a chat, and let me just switch it on over, and just stand by. Okay, you should be able to hear me. Let me just shut the other audio off. Okay. Let me just double check. There might be some music in the background here. Let me just fix this. Well, it shows everything turned off, so I'm hoping everybody, thank you, Fallen Angel, letting me know that the audio is good. Then that's a good thing. Okay, so where was that? Delvin, upper 40s in Boston, deep cool down. You know what? Late next week, behind that next trough that comes through, there's going to be a cold front that's going to pass here late Tuesday night or sometime on early Wednesday. That trough is deep, and the air mass behind it is pretty robust. We were talking about the fact that with this pattern of the troughs in the east, as we get deeper into August and get into September, if that trend continues, these highs coming down, these cool air masses coming down, are going to be getting more and more robust. That's the word I've used, and we're going to see that. We may see days. I think it's going to get very cool in New England here. They certainly could see temperatures. We could see their 40s maybe. Late next week, and certainly I think it's possible that may even see 50s down into areas along the close to the coast. We'll see. I'll see what the magnitude looks like when we get closer. And of course, the main emphasis with respect to the tropics, they are busy. We've got these waves running around. Conditions on the whole are fairly favorable for development in most places. The latest on Harvey. No real change in the forecast by the Hurricane Center, kept it at 40 miles an hour, so it's still a minimal tropical storm, indicating maybe some slow strengthening until it gets a little bit further to the west into the central and western Caribbean, when conditions should become favorable for strengthening there, acknowledging maybe a slight northward component of motion later in the forecast period, but on the whole, they really didn't change very much from what they had earlier. Now, with respect to this afternoon and this evening in the Northeast, down into the northern mid-Atlantic states, we have a slight risk of severe weather that was upgraded by the Storm Prediction Center. But I would just point out, with what has gone through this morning with the very heavy rains that, by the way, continue still outside my door in central Long Island, and I'm under a flash flood warning right now. Sometimes the atmosphere gets robbed of all its juice when something like this happens, so you get this lead area of downpours and thunderstorms to move on through. This is going to pull out, but I'm just wondering how much daytime heating I'm going to have out of this. And these downpours occurred earlier this morning across New Jersey, so that might limit the development of the second round of storms with the cold front when it approaches late this afternoon and this evening. This was what happened last Saturday we had some downpours about 8 to 10 hours before the main frontal line was approached, and when that went through, there was nothing with it. So the risk is there, but I got to tell you, I'm always a little concerned with severe weather blossoming out in situations like this because of the fact that there's only so much for the atmosphere to work with, and once all the juice has been taken out of it, what's left? Delvin wants to know, how does the axis of a robust trough, north-south versus east-northeast, west-southwest, influence how much the temperatures cool down in Boston? It would depend on where you are. You're very Boston-focused, Delvin. I wonder why. It would depend on where Boston is relative to that trough, because if it's a north-south trough, the air mass is going to want to move north to south, so that would take the colder air. The trajectory of the colder air would be north to south, and if Boston lies in the path of that trajectory, so it really kind of depends on where the upper low is. If it's to your north, it would suggest that actually you could get the core of a cold air mass move overhead, even though the trough, the actual coldest part of the upper air storm, might be to your north. So it really sort of depends on where you are geographically with respect to the trough. Same with the excuse me. Same with the northeast southwest trough. It would depend on where you are geographically, where you are with respect to that trough, and sometimes it could be a reflection. Maybe the trough aloft is not as strong that in that you have a situation like you get sometimes in the late winter or early spring, where the low-level cold air is exceptionally cold, and it winds up dropping south at the bottom of the atmosphere, but not necessarily at the top. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Yes, Delvin, I know you're from Boston. I got the idea. I'm just being silly here. Marquis says he heard it will thunder in Baltimore on August 21st. Do I believe it? Well, I mean, doesn't look to me that there could be a chance for a shower or a thunderstorm there on Monday, but I don't think so. But I honestly have been, I'm not always able to look specifically at these geographic points, if only because of the fact that they require a lot of knowledge of the climatology of the area. So I don't want to, unequivocally say no, because I didn't really give it a deep look. And, yesterday there were some isolated thunderstorms down from southern New Jersey down into Maryland and Delaware, where there was nothing anywhere else. So I don't want to say unequivocally no. It doesn't look like it, though, as far as what I can see. Still pouring out my window. All right, so you got a good flavor of what's going on in the tropics, folks. It is very busy, the pattern, very, very active. I think I'm going to be very interested to see what Harvey does as it goes westward, if it's going to eventually respond to that trough that's going to come down in the east later next week. The trough needs to extend. If it doesn't extend far enough south, it could be still pretty robust. But if the westerlies don't get far enough south into the Gulf of Mexico, then it may not pull it up northward. So it's always tough in these situations. It's very tricky when it comes to these the troughs and the weaknesses that develop in the ridge down in that part of the Atlantic basin. Fallen Angel, when will the break in the rain come? You have to go feed your friend's pigeons and you don't want to drown. Okay, well, that's very admirable of you that you're feeding your friend's pigeons. Let me just quickly pull up the radar. Okay, the flash flood warning is gone, which is good. Actually, the back edge of the rain is over central Long Island, probably just to the west of Vets Highway, if I had to guess. There's not much going on west of there. There's a few cells right now over parts of southern Ocean County and in southern Burlington County near the shore. Also, there's some rain up in the Hudson Valley north of Poughkeepsie on up to Albany, but that's about it for now. So what's going on Long Island is going to be pulling out shortly, and you will be able to feed those pigeons. Okay, I'm glad you're doing that. That is a very, very good thing to do. Okay, so we're going to end it right here. There will be, of course, it's a weekend, which makes it a little bit easier for me to live stream, except And I am working at WPIX TV tomorrow at 5 o'clock, and you can catch me at pix11.com on that website. But I will do a live stream tomorrow morning, maybe at around the same time, 10:30 or 11 a.m. And we'll see how much, I'll try to get on in a timely way. I have to stream on both platforms, so it's just kind of hard. I'm just trying to doing a balancing act, but I'll do the best I can. And Sunday I'm not working anywhere, so I'll be able to live stream, and we'll probably do it later Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening to catch the primetime stuff. All right, folks, have a great rest of your day. Thank you for being here on my YouTube channel. And if you've stayed this long, God bless you. You're into 31 minutes of weather. I don't know how you do it. So by all means, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's absolutely free, and you'll get notifications when these live streams go on. And of course, you can check out all my latest website posts on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. Angry Ben has NYC covered on nycweathernow.com. I have a lot of Eclipse stuff up there, so give it a good look, and we'll talk to you later.